Well, welcome to the Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale 2021 launch conference. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our sponsors and partners that help make this event possible. We will be beginning the event in just a couple of minutes here, so hang tight.
Good morning, Fort Lauderdale. My name is Abby Malone, President and CEO of Capital Analytics. Welcome to the fourth annual launch conference of our Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale report, an in-depth analysis of what makes the region tick, where are the challenges, and what opportunities lie ahead. Thank you all for being here today. I'd like to begin today by highlighting what a remarkable year it's been. In many ways, it's been far more successful than any of us could have imagined well over a year ago when the pandemic first reached our shores. While COVID has been a tragedy of unprecedented global magnitude, we've been resilient and demonstrated that cooperation leads to success. The pandemic is also the greatest example of that, with companies and governments coming together to deliver the COVID vaccine in record time. Recent data shows that almost half the US population is now fully vaccinated against the virus. That in itself is a remarkable turn of events. While there will be bumps in the road, the path forward is certainly far more clear than it was a year ago. That is clearly evident here in Fort Lauderdale and Broward County. Recent data shows that jobs are coming back, real estate is booming, and most expectations are for growth, and more growth. Yet challenges remain. From infrastructure to affordable housing, there is still a great deal of work to do to make sure that the recovery is equitable and ripples across all demographics. But no doubt, we are moving forward. At Capital Analytics, we're also excited to move forward, building on what became a successful year despite everything that transpired over the last 12 to 14 months. Like so many businesses, we saw the opportunity to change things up, adapt, and innovate. Business intelligence is now more important than ever, whether it's print, digital, or virtual conferences like these. Our global subscribers and readers have never been more engaged. If people are to invest during uncertain times, they want to be even better informed, and they're coming to us to do just that. Our Invest Insights video platform, for example, has exploded. We're finding our partners, like yourselves, want to participate, want a community connection, and want to get the message out that the world continues to move forward. We've expanded that video platform to a podcast so that our readers and our viewers can listen to us on the go. And we could not be more pleased with our adaptation to virtual events. Transforming our live conferences to the digital world last year was nerve-wracking at first, but we've discovered that we have a new skill set here at Capital Analytics. After 7 successful virtual events last year and 3 thus far in 2021, I'm delighted to be here, virtually speaking, with my neighbors to the north. So as you can see, with so many businesses over the past year, the pandemic didn't slow us down, it only sped us up. And with so many of you here today, that key has been the ability to transform. Transformation, in fact, is our adopted theme for this year, and it will be a central element for our discussions today. In all of our discussions with hundreds of business and political leaders, the common thread is how far we've come in such a short amount of time, how advances that were expected to take years only took a matter of months. As a community, we have transformed for the better. emerging even stronger. We're looking forward with an optimistic eye, knowing that we can apply the lessons learned from the past year to craft an even brighter future. I'd like to take a moment and thank the sponsors of today's event. Our gold sponsor, Nova Southeastern University, our bronze sponsor, Fort Lauderdale Behavioral Health Center and Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce. Happy birthday, Dan. Our honored sponsors, Baker Donaldson, the Broward Workshop, Miami Association of Realtors, Riverside Hotel, and Transworld Business Advisor. Thank you. It is with your support that we can continue to bring high-level speakers and content to the Greater Fort Lauderdale area. I would also like to recognize the team headed by Laura Hernandez and Josh Greenberg, who worked tirelessly on this year's report. You both did a truly amazing job. Well done. We have an impressive lineup for you today, and I want to thank today's moderators, panelists, and all you in the audience for being here. And now it is my pleasure to announce Heather Havrack, the CEO of Broward Health Medical Center. Heather, can you please turn on your video and turn on your audio? There you are. Heather, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Great. Well, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks, Heather.
Good morning. I'm Heather Haverchak. I'm the CEO of Broward Health Medical Center and Saleh Foundation Children's Hospital. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today at Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale's annual luncheon. While I wish we were in person, I definitely know that day is coming soon, thanks to the unbelievable efforts of caregivers at Broward Health and all health systems across the region and the world. The unwavering dedication of our doctors, nurses, and first responders this past year and a half has been truly remarkable. As they performed millions of COVID-19 tests, they cared for thousands of hospitalized COVID patients and administered hundreds of thousands of vaccines to help pave an exit to this pandemic. I would be remiss, though, if on behalf of all of those caregivers, I did not also extend my thanks to you, to our community. When the world seemed to be crashing down upon us with hundreds of critically ill patients requiring exhausting hours and layers of PPE, you stepped in to help us ensure that the morale of our frontline workers never faltered. Thank you for the generous meals, the signs, the donations, and notes of encouragement, and for the many other ways that you showed us that we were all in this together. Thankfully, at Broward Health Medical Center, a sense of normalcy is returning. But today I want to take you on a journey that highlights the tremendous innovation that guided us to this point and how the pandemic has transformed the future of medicine. It's hard to believe that just a year ago, Broward County identified its first COVID-19 positive patient. As we watched the world battle this unknown virus, we waited, and all too quickly, the virus reached our county, our hospitals, and our community. From that first patient, time sped up and life became a blur as we dusted off plans to address a crisis never before experienced in our lifetime. Thanks to the ingenuity and insight of so many in the healthcare field and right here at Broward Health, we were able to quickly pivot and adjust business operations to manage COVID-19. For example, within less than 24 hours, we were able to utilize local partners to erect tents to pre-screen incoming COVID patients before they were coming in the hospital. Our local vendors also helped us convert entire hospital wings into negative pressure units so that we could ensure that there was no cross-contamination between COVID positive and non-COVID patients. Federal, state, and local officials helped us assess our increasing needs. They provided test kits, therapies, personnel, and so much more. Perhaps one area in which I was personally inspired were the actions taken by our very own Broward Health Foundation when patient visitation had to be suspended. Realizing that patients, whether suffering from COVID or other conditions, would now have limited or no in-person support, they solicited the community for donations of tablets so that not only could our patients communicate with their loved ones at home, but they could also communicate quickly with doctors and nurses, and we could implement telehealth within the hospital. Many of the donated tablets were used for critically ill patients so that they could be observed around the clock by caregivers both in and out of our hospitals. If that's not a glimpse of where the future of medicine is headed, I don't know what is. So now, here we are with COVID patient volumes at the lowest they've been since the onset of the pandemic, and our Fort Lauderdale community returning to pre-COVID normalcy. What does that mean for you as the business leaders of Fort Lauderdale and for the many employees who drive industries across our county? Based on CDC guidelines, I can share that at Broward Health, employees who have been working remotely returned to working in person in early 2021. And those who have been vaccinated no longer need to wear masks in our non-clinical settings, such as offices. And what's the great news about that? We've had no issues. We are resuming in-person meetings and events, even as our Broward Health International team welcomes back cruise ships that will set sail from Port Everglades for the first time in over a year in the upcoming weeks ahead. While we still must be cautious, if you've been vaccinated, we can begin to safely resume our pre-COVID activities because the vaccine works. It's safe, it's effective, and it's the exodus to the pandemic. Businesses can safely consider welcoming their workforces back to the office, kids can return to school, and vacations. Everyone should be taking a vacation. We've earned it. And personally, I'm looking forward to enjoying live sports events, concerts, and dinners out with friends and family who I haven't seen in far too long. One thing that I think we'll all take away from the pandemic is the collaboration and ingenuity of our community used to get to this point, navigating so many unforeseen obstacles and financial implications that accompanied COVID-19. But those challenges garnered new and stronger relationships that continue to be cultivated at events such as this, and the networking that occurs through organizations such as Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale. Despite the pandemic, Broward Health continued its commitment to innovation in tertiary services. We completed a $52 million capital project in our Saleh Foundation Children's Hospital, which was the final phase of our neonatal intensive care unit. This provides a family-centered environment for our smallest of patients. Our South Florida Transplant Center further expanded their program to include kidney transplant, and our organization was accredited for the highest level of comprehensive stroke care through the Joint Commission. We are also incredibly thrilled to be launching new technology to treat heart rhythm disorders through a robotics technology platform called Stereotaxis. We will be the only center in Florida with this technology and one of 4 in the country. Broward Health Medical Center is proud to be a partner to so many of you and your healthcare provider of choice in the greater Fort Lauderdale area. It's an exciting time for our city and county as we experience significant growth, economic resurgence, and unparalleled opportunities for our collective future. We look forward to partnering with you in many of these ventures and stand ready to serve you in the future. Thank you for your support these past months, and congratulations, Fort Lauderdale. We've almost made it.
Thank you, Heather. We appreciate you being here today with us. Thank you for the remarks that you've given. And I would also like to add all of our appreciation here at Capital Analytics to the work that you and your colleagues have done over the past year during the pandemic and helping Broward County get through it. To everyone else, good morning. While I wish we were gathered together today, it is my pleasure to be here with you virtually. For those who do not know me from last year's event, I'm Jack Miller, one of the regional directors at Capital Analytics, overseeing many of our ongoing projects. I would like to add my thanks also to everyone who contributed to this year's report. Also to our sponsors and our supporters who are here today. Apologies in the opening remarks, we forgot to mention one of our sponsors, High Power, so we appreciate you as well. I also want to take just a moment to update you on our work in the country. As Abby mentioned in her opening remarks, Capital Analytics has only ramped up operations over the past 12 months. We are currently conducting interviews for the 3rd and 7th editions of Invest Palm Beach and Invest Miami. We are also continuing to expand our reach and are currently preparing our first editions of Invest Raleigh-Durham, Invest Minneapolis-St. Paul, and Invest Nashville. If anyone would like to be a part of any of these exciting new additions or have operations in those areas, please do reach out to me and or anyone on our team. To sign up to receive any of our newsletters for these markets or a copy of our reports, please email contact@capitalalaa.com or visit our website, capitalanalyticsassociates.com. Now it is my pleasure today to introduce our first panel, Operation Recovery, how our civic leaders are encouraging economic growth and community engagement in a recovering market. Moderating the panel today is Todd Holt, Vice President of Business Development for the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. Todd, it's good to see you. If you just unmute yourself so that we can hear you as well.
Yeah, that's the tagline for 2020, right? You're on mute.
Unmute yourself. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Turn on the video. So I'm going to hand it over to you and to introduce the
Thank you.
rest of the panel. Looks like we lost Dr. Earl for just a moment, but he should hopefully be back in a second. But let's go ahead and get started.
Absolutely. And again, my name is Todd Holt. I'm the Vice President of Business Development with the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. It's my absolute pleasure to be here today and be able to moderate this distinguished panel. Thank you to Capital Analytics for putting together today's conference, Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale. I can't think of a more appropriate topic to discuss today with where we find ourselves coming out of quarantine, which is in no small part to the leaders we have on today's panel. Although none of which need introductions, we know them well, I will quickly recognize each of you and then we'll go straight into questions and answers. Keep in mind, I'll address a question to each of our panelists. However, that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you all. We absolutely do. If we can have an open dialogue, all the better. We are here to hear your thoughts. So with that, on today's panel, we have City of Fort Lauderdale Mayor Dean Trentalis. Good morning. City of Oakland Park Mayor Jane Bowen. City of Pompano Beach CRA Director Nguyen Tran. And when he joins us again, Dr. Jeremy Earl, City Manager with the City of Hollandale Beach. So with that, I'll start with you, Mayor Trentalis. The City of Fort Lauderdale has, the City of Fort Lauderdale has really emerged as being a model for having a safe and successful reopening plan. Can you talk a little bit about what that process has looked like, what has gone into your decision-making, and then what sectors do you see emerging from this the strongest?
So good morning, and thank you for inviting me to today's discussion. I think this is really important to understand, how we got here and where we're going. The pandemic certainly seized upon all these communities with a tight grip that very few knew how to undo. It just became an amazing moment in our history, in our times, and in our lives. And when we first encountered the disease, the only answer we knew was to shut everything down, keep people away from each other. We were told that the spread of the disease came through human interaction. So our knee-jerk reaction was, let's shut everything down and wait and see what happens.
Right.
Well, the reality is that the disease didn't go away. All it did was slow its pace. And we realized that we had to find alternative methods of trying to re-engage our communities in order to not only just protect lives, but also to ensure livelihoods as going forward. It was great to be able to work with partners such as an Oakland Park and Jane Bowen, as well as Wilton Manors, for example, when we put together a food distribution system, trying to address the needs of people who were thrown out of work because they lost their jobs as a result of certain industries contracting. In particular, the hospitality industry, where hotels and restaurants all were closed down by government mandate at the time, and these folks had no place else to go. A lot of people also had threats to their homes where they couldn't pay their mortgages, they couldn't pay their rents. And thank God government came in again, stepped in, and put a moratorium on evictions, but also there are now programs where people can pay back their landlords and hopefully get themselves back on a surer footing going forward. But as we move forward, we realized that that we needed to get people back to work. And our hospitality industry was really important, but also our marine industry, our yachting industry, as well as real estate. We start to see how those industries rebounded significantly even during the pandemic. I guess a lot of people took their tax cut money and invested it in boats and real estate. And part of that money was also from out of the area. People realizing that in this new world of interacting in the Ethernet, we could still communicate and conduct business in a way that once before we only thought was something you'd see on TV. So what we have now is a return to our industries, our traditional industries, the yachting and marine industry, certainly come back with robust energy. Our real estate industry the same way. Um, but excitingly, a lot of other industries like tech and financial services are starting to see the opportunities of living in places where they never thought that they could permanently place their businesses. And in a newsletter we sent out this week, and as the Alliance has been promoting, a lot of tech industries and financial service industries are starting to permanently locate their headquarters or at least satellite offices here in the Fort Lauderdale area. That's the beginning of a trend. And I think that we thank the Alliance and we thank all the other business advocates who have been able to go out and to promote our area, not just because we have beautiful sunny weather all the time, but because we create an ecosystem here between talent, resources, energy, just a whole vibrant community that is excited to take on um, a new way of life where it isn't just dependent on marine industry and travel and leisure. It's about being more serious in terms of taking our academic achievement, those kids who are graduating from our schools today, finding them jobs here at home rather than they're having to go to other cities. You know, Greater Fort Lauderdale is the place to be. We see it time and again, and I think that all you have to do is talk to the folks that patronize our restaurants and are here visiting. They're here because the buzz is out there that South Florida, Greater Fort Lauderdale, and Fort Lauderdale in particular, places where they want to be. And we're accepting that challenge. We're embracing that challenge. The city of Fort Lauderdale realizes that they could not let a day pass without continuing to work on our infrastructure, making sure that those less sexy projects like water and sewer things and so
Necessities. Yes.
necessities are addressed, and we continue to do that. We're spending a significant amount of money. This month we'll be completing it, that 7.5 mile sewer force main through the middle of the city, which caused so much commotion and drew national attention. Um, you know, this is how we work with one another, because we know that line services just more than just our city. And it's really important because if we don't have the infrastructure, all these new fancy buildings are not going to be able to function.
Very
And
good
we
point.
and we want people to feel secure. We're now moving forward and we're going to rebuild our water treatment plant. You should probably hear an announcement in the next month or so about a contractor that we're going to choose, who is going to build a new water treatment plant, one that will not only create pure water, but also be able to withstand, a Category 5 hurricane. So imagine if we had a major hurricane come through here, which is not likely, but could happen. It would totally wipe out our drinking system. So, how could we survive under those circumstances? So we have to be smart going forward, and I think cities are. We talk with our neighboring cities, our sister cities here, and we work together to ensure that the safety and well-being of our communities are our number one priority. So to answer your question, the COVID has taught us how to rearrange our priorities. In some ways, it allowed us to move forward in trying to ensure the success of our existing industries and our existing ways of doing business. But it's also taught us who we are as people. It's taught us to internalize our feelings a little bit and reflect and say, how can we do better and how can we be
Certainly.
better people?
Absolutely.
And I think that this has been a great opportunity for us to find best practices going forward and ensure created an environment that people will feel comfortable in through the diversity that we've encouraged through business opportunities that are low tax rates and our business incentives have encouraged, and
Sure.
to also understand that South Florida embraces people from all walks of life, and we're here to make this your home and your new career.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Great answer. And to segue, my next question to Mayor Bowen along those lines, throughout the pandemic, we knew our small businesses were hurting. And we were looking at every way possible that we could offer assistance. And we'll talk to Dr. Earl in a little bit about some of those programs. But in particular, the buy local campaigns that took place, from the Supporter of Broward campaign to the Find It in Oakland Park campaign, et cetera. But I want to say the city of Oakland Park was the first to actually come up with that program, which really had a significant impact. My question is, how has that being community-minded initiative going to impact these businesses? Not only how did it impact those businesses throughout the pandemic, but how is it going to impact those businesses moving forward, Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. So I think, like Mayor Trantella said, this pandemic had us look at everything completely newly. And when we looked at how to respond for business, one of the things we did right off the bat was have the conversations that, even as we were closing things down, we were starting to have the conversations which seemed crazy at the time. When will this end, right? Because it was such an unknown. But we knew business would be impacted the minute government shut down business. So what we did was think about what can we provide our small businesses that they can't provide for themselves or they would need support with. So we started with recovery kits. So we created over 3,000 recovery kits. And what that started was with the basic sign that said, "Stop. Don't enter this building unless you have a mask and stay 6 feet apart." So we created that signage, also provided masks that they could give to their patrons and then use for their employees as well. So that was really the start of it. But then we looked at how can we use our current CRA, and we looked at our business concierge services and said, what can we do to support them, not just in permitting and opening, but now that they're open, how do we help you adapt to restrictions? So we created that line of communication. So every time we had a new county order, that confused people, we would be able to give them the actual understanding of what that meant for a hotel, a restaurant, et cetera, right? So that was critical. And then again, partnership, Mayor Trantella spoke about this as well. As cities, we're constantly looking to partner with each other, get best practices. And we worked with, SCORE, for instance, came in, did a whole lot of webinars for us, really providing education on how to get the PPP, what does it even mean, et cetera. And then this Find It in Oakland Park, it was a conversation I had early on with our city manager. And it was like, we need to think now about how to provide that sort of marketing dollar assistance. And it made sense when you thought about the whole community. People want to support local. There'd never been more of a support local feel that I can remember in my lifetime than during the pandemic. I mean, it was really, everybody said, where is my local hardware store? Not where is Home Depot? Not that there's anything wrong with Home Depot, but you know what I'm saying? So Find It in Oakland Park was our ability to say, let's put that all together. Let's get it created now. So we knew it'd take a little time with momentum because not everybody was going to be coming out of their doors at the same time, but it's in place. And I see it as moving forward. This is, again, where can government provide support, not step in, but provide support. And when you have a CRA structure, when you've got business development, it makes perfect sense for us to merge those things together and then provide that for our small businesses. So it was really it's sort of a silver lining coming out of this, but our connection with our small businesses have never been stronger. And I feel like at this point, people do look to us for grants, opportunities, and support that we never did before.
Right. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And others may disagree with me on this, but I do feel because of our local leadership, which of course includes all of you, we were looking at the rest of the country. I felt at times like we were a little bit more insulated from a lot of the craziness that we saw all around the country. So we thank you for that thought process, sincerely. So next I will go to you, Dr. Earl, and I would be remiss if I didn't say, we think extremely highly of Dr. Earl. He's someone that we respect and look to. I tell you, Jeremy, you've always had this uncanny ability to be able to look at the community, be objective, and come up with these novel programs that are really one-offs that prove to be not only proactive but successful, and then have staying power. Many of those programs stay in place and are still in place. To that end, the Sun Sentinel had an article, I want to say on Monday, that was talking about all the development taking place in Hollandale Beach. I think they highlighted Atlantic Village in particular, they were talking about. I understand that the city has created a program to incentivize development and investment in the city of Hollandale Beach, and that's actually has spurred a lot of that activity. Can you talk a little bit about what those programs look like and everything that's going on, post-pandemic in Hollandale Beach?
No, absolutely. And good morning, everyone. And my apologies for being late. And Todd, your check is in the mail for all those wonderful things that you just said. So, but I'm very fortunate to be on this panel. It is very good to see Mayor Trantalis. I haven't seen you for a while. I miss you. Mayor Bolin, hope to meet you in person sometime soon. And Ewan, always good to see you. So I'm very honored to be on this panel. So in terms of Hallandale, Todd mentioned, so by nature, I tend to be very, very proactive. So I always want to be ahead of the curve, and you have to really think about what is happening not only now in the economy, but what's going to happen in the future as well. And you really can't put all of your eggs in one basket. So, as we come out of the pandemic that we have all endured, and I'll use the word endured for the past year, the goal is to be even more proactive across the board in terms of what we are going to do as incentives for development. So for example, Mayor Trantalis mentioned infrastructure. Infrastructure is one of those things that we're going to be doing. We received one $20 million $120 million loan that the CRA will be handling all of our major beautification infrastructure type improvements throughout the CRA area. We're also going to be going after a revenue bond as well, so we can address all of our pipes, 50-year-old pipes, 60-year-old pipes, 70-year-old pipes, water, wastewater, stormwater. So we're doing a lot of the things that we need to do now so that our community, business or residential, does not have to worry about those things, in a few years in terms of things beginning to break. From a business perspective, yes, we are trying to be extremely aggressive with the incentives that we provide for business. We've created programs, business loan programs, business grant programs. We're giving millions of dollars of incentives for development projects as we speak. We're going to be giving millions of dollars more for development projects over the next 5 or 6 years. I would say in particular of the CRA's life. But we are being very, very aggressive with providing that assistance that the business owners and developers in particular in terms of what they need. We're also going to be working with our development, our community development department as well to expedite permitting. So everything that is tangible and non-tangible, or intangible, I should say, we are trying to address all of those things across the board. Zoning changes. What zoning changes can I begin to do now that a developer does not have to worry about, 6 months from now or a year from now, because those changes take time. So right now we're doing, we're changing our RAC, we're changing our zoning in certain areas to get everything shovel ready in a sense, so that the development community does not have to worry about those things. I used to work for one of the largest home builders in the country. So, from a private sector perspective, I bring that private sector viewpoint to a lot of what we do in government. And one of the things that I, as a developer at the time, you want certainty in terms of your development projects. You want to make sure that if you're coming under a certain zoning or land use, those things are not going to change on you. You want to know that when you come into a community, you are able to build your project, because obviously time is money, to make money on that project. And that's something, by the way, that I always tell a developer: I don't care how much money you make. The mistake that we've made in government in many cases, Todd, is it's almost like it's offensive when a developer makes money. That's like they're bringing a project to your community that hopefully will create jobs, hopefully will provide resources in your community that was not there before. And I tell every developer, look, I want you all to make money. I want you all to be successful, because then you'll do other projects in our city as well. And so from a business perspective, yes, we have layered a tremendous amount of incentives. And we've made those incentives so varied that it touches on everyone from the very small business owner to the very large developer. It's never a one size fits all. And we're able to layer those incentives, whether it is a facade incentive, an interior incentive, a kitchen incentive, a restaurant incentive, a business loan incentive, a commercial grant incentive, which could be millions of dollars. We've layered all of these things in order to address the needs that the business community has. And Mayor Boland mentioned in Oakland Park, again, some of the incentives that they're using and some of the lessons that they learned from the pandemic. And during the pandemic, we knew we had to be as supportive as possible to our business community and our residential community. But in terms of this conversation, our business community. So we immediately issued $500,000 worth of incentives for our business community. That saved them, and they will tell you that those loans that we provided, in fact, it turned out it was initially a loan, but then we changed it into a grant as the pandemic began to as we languished in that pandemic for much longer than any one of us anticipated. We turned those loans into a grant just to make sure that the burden that was on those business owners, that we were able to remove that burden. And I tell you, those things that we did literally saved a tremendous amount of our businesses in Hallandale Beach.
Oh, I'm
so
sure.
we've taken those lessons and we are using those same principles in this year of recovery, because I see this year as being a year of recovery. And we're still going to be rolling out those programs to support our business owners as well. And so, I hope that kind of answers your question and gives you kind of a picture of what we're doing.
It does. And let me say, I thought initially this panel was going to be an hour and a half because there's so many questions and follow-up that I want to ask, but I'm refraining from that. I'm trying to keep to the plan. So with that, great job. Thank you. Very thoughtful answer, and it's much appreciated. I will go to you next, Mr. Yuen Tran, Director of, again, Pompano Beach CRA. And I'll tell you, when I started the Alliance 10 years ago, Pompano Beach, what they've done is unbelievable. I mean, the transformation is undeniable, and the success the CRA has had. I know diversity is something that's focused on, not only from a cultural, ethnic standpoint, but from the type of businesses that you try to attract in the CRA, as well as the type of arts and restaurants, et cetera, that you have there. But in addition to that, the public-private partnerships have proved to be a successful model for you in the CRA. Can you talk a little bit about those partnerships and how you see that impacting in a positive way the CRA moving forward?
Well, Todd, I'd like to say first of all, thank you again. I'm very honored to be on this panel with two really great mayors and also Jeremy. Jeremy and I go back a long way, and we haven't seen each other in a while. But I think everyone who has done business with the CRA in the state of Florida realizes how important CRAs are. And the tools that come with CRAs. It's unfortunate there is a end life for CRAs in Florida. But we're very different from cities. Cities have different objectives. CRAs are all about business development, business attraction, getting, economic impact projects. When you mention diversity, the city of Pompano Beach is very diverse. We have two CRA districts. We have an East Beach district, which is very different than a Northwest district. The Northwest is predominantly African American, and of course, the beach is more the area for tourism. So there is diversity there. I think in today's time, it's not more about diversity, but it's more about racial equity and how to balance that equity between races. Us, like in a lot of cities, we do have that very strong dividing line. However, when you wear your CRA hat, you don't look at that racial dividing line. You try to erase that, and you try to have development that are equal on both sides. When you mention P3s are very important for the public sector, because the most important part of your private sector developer is that they share the risk with you. That is the main thing. When you have a P3 partner at the table, they share that risk. It's not all on the public and public funds. Where that goes is, in a way, we can learn a lot from our private sector partners. I know all of us in government wishes that government moves faster. And we can learn from our partners, and how we control that on the government side is that we control the process, we control the fees, we control permitting and how fast permitting can go. So, with that going forward, our CRA was very successful during this COVID shutdown period, where we were able to partner with two major developments here in Pompano and offer tax increment financing. So we got those deals done. We helped bridge that gap for two major projects, and because we bridged that gap, and it was really a construction cost and labor gap, which we're encountering in every city, is construction costs are so high and labor costs are getting up there that these projects that are on the books need some assistance. So that's where we can step in on the private sector, with the private sector on the public side, is trying to reduce those costs. Another strategy that we work well with in Pompano is smart growth. We all know that development's not going to stop in Florida. In fact, we're probably one of the highest areas where growth is going to happen, especially here in South Florida. We're not in rural Florida. We are beach cities in Broward County. Development's going to happen. People will move down here. So the important part, as Mayor Trentalis said, is infrastructure. We need infrastructure in place to support that growth. There's a lot of strategies that was mentioned, like zoning. Dr. Earl mentioned zoning. What we have successfully done here in Pompano is worked on the zoning first. And, what I'm trying to say is that we want more traffic, transportation oriented type of corridors to handle this growth. So it's not only infrastructure, it's the traffic impacts that new growth brings. Where we do need to focus on the future is really sea level rise and sustainability, because here in South Florida, we are ground zero for sea level rise. It will happen, and where it comes on top of everyone's radar is when the lenders stop doing 30-year mortgages, really. So we have to start focusing on sustainable developments in the future moving forward.
Yeah, no, and great answer, and thank you. And you're exactly right. And to your point, South Florida is attractive, but again, I think it's because of people like you that have put the infrastructure in place that we have. So it is attractive to all this movement that we're seeing from the Northeast, Midwest, and California. With that, we only have a few minutes, and I am being told that we have a couple questions from our audience. So I'm going to ask a couple questions, and this is open. So please answer accordingly. Our first question is from Sarah Ransdell, and she asked, what type of support are we giving to college students coming out of the quarantine and the pandemic from a city perspective? I'll start with you. Tagline, Mayor Trentalis, you're on mute.
Are we good? Okay.
Good.
That's a good question. Cities aren't normally engaged in the education process. Broward has its own school board, and but in terms of trying to draw college kids back home, many of whom have gone away to college and are looking for opportunities here in their hometown. This has been a priority, I know, for my city, I know for Oakland Park, I know for many of our neighboring cities, to try to continue to bring good paying, career-oriented jobs here in our community. And as we touched upon it earlier, expanding upon the typical real estate and marine and yachting industry economies, trying to draw in more financial services as well as tech industries. It's exciting to hear that we're probably going to build a tunnel here in Fort Lauderdale, and in fact multiple tunnels as the plan goes forward. And these are exciting opportunities. So young people are drawn to the idea of forward-thinking communities. And I think that's the incentive that we provide as a city to put the message out to young people who are graduating from school that that these jobs are here. These jobs are good jobs, and it's a place where a person can come and talk about starting their career, as I did in my when I was here in my late 20s in the last century, and made that decision, knowing that a growing community like Fort Lauderdale is a place where we can all prosper. And as we continue to grow, we will all continue to find opportunities for ourselves to apply our degrees in a place that in a way that really helps us prosper as we had always dreamed of for the very reason we went to college.
Right. Good point. And I must plug, we've had a number of life sciences projects in Fort Lauderdale recently announced as well. So there's a real diversity there as far as the business activity, which is great for those folks graduating from college. Mayor Bowen, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I think Mayor Trentalis nailed it. I think young adults are looking for forward-thinking communities that are looking at, redesigning what it looks like to have a downtown, that there's a sustainable mix, that we have mobility. I mean, I think that's really, to answer the question straight, do we take college students as a segment? No, I had not thought about that. And that's why it's a great question. But at the same time, super impacted because young people are looking for up and coming growth areas. They want to be able to walk, live, and work in some semblance of a space, right? Where they've got a community. Sure. So I think that's what we provide. And it comes from many different areas.
No, thank you. And I completely agree. We have one more question from the audience, and I will direct this to, okay, give me a second. I'm getting notes. Okay, here we go. And this is actually, it's an anonymous question, but it's not bad. If it was, I might hold off. The question is for the leaders, in what non-traditional revenue sources, aside from property taxes, can local cities tap in to fund programs, initiatives, and things of that nature? I'll direct that to you, Jeremy and Yuen.
Okay, very, very good question. I think for every city, it's going to be a little bit different in terms of what non-traditional revenue sources that you utilize. So, for example, in Hallandale Beach, we have 2 casinos, and during the pandemic, about $1.5 million of revenue that we get from slots went away because of the pandemic and the shutdowns that we had. One of the things that we are doing now, however, is something that we have not done ever, is to have a parking program. And that parking program seeks to expand from 3 areas of our city and approximately 198 spaces to expand to 1,000 spaces throughout our city within the city's right-of-way, and hopefully generating approximately, conservatively, about $1.4 million. Then we're also looking at other things in terms of the other resources that we have. How do we deal with concessions on our beaches? Can we do we partner with the private sector who've really been asking us to come out, and do beach chairs and other types of things. So there are, you look at your now here's the other interesting thing. So when you look at your city's budget, you always find that there are things that you could be doing to raise revenues that perhaps you are not focusing on. So one of the things that we're doing here in Hallandale Beach, for example, is we're looking at what we call our uncollectibles. I'll say it that way. And those are revenues that the city potentially could be collecting, but no one is necessarily focusing on those things. Maybe some of those things came from a lawsuit. Maybe some of those things come from various other avenues. And so when we ran the numbers on some of those, some of our collections, some of those go into the tune of over $1 million, right? So that $1 million means that is something that is not a tax on a resident. That's something that we as government could be looking into.
Could absorb it
in terms of focusing within our own organization. So there are different things. I would, I've encouraged my staff to be as creative as they can be. We're not about trying to feed the community to death, but we're also about being stabilized as well. And so you're looking at your fees, for example. And I know that's not non-traditional, but you have to have what we call right size, right fit. So, are you providing the actual, are you providing, if you have a service, are we charging what that service actually is so that you're at least break even? I mean, we're not trying to, we're not trying to make billions of extra dollars a year on our residents, but you have to begin to look at the services that you have.
Right.
And you have to, from a business perspective, ask, are we doing what we need to do? Now, of course, if you have a new program like parking, residents who were not paying for parking before may not like that because it's, they were parking for free. They may not like that, but these are some of the things that government.
But you're at least asking the question,
at least
right?
you begin to ask the question.
Which is huge. And unfortunately, we've ran out of time. I would love to have each one of you be able to speak at least, a few more times. There's a lot of questions that we want to pose, which is good. Thank you all for being here and making yourselves available today. I know how busy you all are. Thank you again to Capital Analytics for the opportunity. And with that, we will say goodbye.
If everyone can just hold for 1 second, we're going to take a quick picture. Quick picture, everyone. If everyone can just smile real quick. And Mayor Trentalis, if you can, turn on your camera again. All right, just go ahead and smile, everyone. And perfect. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Todd, Dr. Earl, Mayors Boleyn and Trentalis and Nguyen. Thank you all for being with us today. We really appreciate the insight and the comments that you've given to us. So again, thank you from us. As a reminder, all of our registered attendees today will receive complimentary access to read our Invest Greater Fort Lauderdale 2021 report digitally. So look out for that email that will be sent after today's event. Also, we are currently live streaming on YouTube page where this event will also sit for anyone that would like to revisit it or share these great discussions around. On our YouTube page, you will not only find this event, but our Invest Insights video platform as well, where you can hear more from many of these leaders and our other leaders in the regions who have delivered a lot of great insights into and great content into what their activities have been over the last year. I would now like to introduce our second panel for today's event. Innovative Ideas, a glimpse into how innovation has thrived in Broward County over the last year. Moderating this panel today is Capital Analytics' own regional editor, Max Crampton Thomas. Happy to have Max here with us in the office doing this with us today. So I'm going to hand it over to him to take it away.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it. And as everybody's entering here, if you can just turn on your camera and your microphones, that would be perfect. Hi, Dr. Hamberry. Stacy, how you doing? Perfect. Hello. Tim, nice to see you. And I believe we're just waiting on Jeffrey now. Well, while we're waiting for everyone to come in, I just want to go ahead and introduce our great panel here today. As Jack mentioned, I am Max Crampton Thomas. I'm the regional editor for Capital Analytics. We are joined here today by Dr. George Hamberry. He's the president of Nova Southeastern University. Stacy Ritter, the president and CEO of Visit Lauderdale. Tim Petrillo, the CEO and co-founder of the Restaurant People. And Jeffrey Freemark, the president and CEO of Miami Jewish Health. I thank you all for being here. As we saw from the last panel, we are on about a half an hour, 35-minute time crunch here. So let's go ahead and dive right in. To start off, I think we should just go around the panel and just give that quick definition of really what innovation means to you and your organization. And over the course of the last year, how has this definition changed for you? And I'll go ahead and start on my left-hand side here, and that's Dr. Hamberry.
Oh, well, thank you, Max. The old saying, necessity is the mother of invention. And I think the pandemic has absolutely proven that NSU has been involved in innovation ever since its founding back in 1964. And we've always taken the classroom and the professor to the student instead of making the student come to the classroom. So this year, the past 15 months, that's exactly what we did, expanded on that concept. And unfortunately, because we are a private not-for-profit, we had to invest our own funds, right? $10 million to expand our technology so that over 750 classrooms to over 22,000 students, even our pre-K through 12 NSU University School, we provided cameras and TVs and the technology for those cameras and microphones to be utilized through the technology we're utilizing today through Zoom. And also, even though we have been known for distance learning for ever since the 80s, one of the vanguards, we had to do professional training with about 1,800 faculty members on how to Zoom and lecture at the same time, so that with Zoom, the students could record synchronous and asynchronous classroom instruction. And because of that, it gave those employees and those students who were working to continue working, yet continued to go to class. And during the pandemic, we actually saw, contrary to other universities and colleges, an increase in our student enrollment instead of a decrease. And other things like necessity taught us, because in our dental school and our dental clinics, which we kept open after government allowed us to open clinical operations, instead of outsourcing our crowns and our dentures through technology and 3D printing, we actually printed dentures and crowns, and our students learned even greater ideas. So years and years of planning kind of allowed NSU to come across like we were geniuses, but all we did was expanded on the same things we did and have always done well. So innovation has always been part of our area, and more recently, for about 3 years, we've been planning with the county to convert the 5th floor of our library to a center of innovation, so that South Florida, which because of the pandemic, as well as the whole state, is bringing in about 300,000 persons a year and emphasizing technology. And because Broward County is right in the center of close to 9 million people from St. Lucie down to Monroe, it is a great opportunity for Broward County to work with us as they have done. And the county commission and the university put up about $13.5 billion to convert the 5th floor of the state's largest library and the only university library open to the general public to be that center of innovation for entrepreneurship and to attract financial markets, tech hub, biotech research for innovation, entrepreneurship, and technology, emphasizing cybersecurity. We have a huge cybersecurity range, artificial intelligence, and even virtual reality, which we're now doing in simulation labs, which we had to do during the pandemic. So we are now expanding all of that, and that center of innovation will be open next month. So I think innovation and the necessity of the mother that was of our cause is going to help us to progress and help Broward County grow economically for high-paying, high-tech, and biotech jobs.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think from how I'm going to phrase this for you, Stacy, because again, I'm just going left to right here, and Stacy, you're right on my top right screen here. So Stacy, I'm going to rephrase the question a little bit for you, just so we can dive a little bit deeper. And Dr. Hamberry, that was a great answer. When you actually spoke to us for Invest, you mentioned how the #1 mission for Visit Lauderdale right now is to obviously attract those businesses and visitors back into the region, and we still see it happening. We even saw it happening during the pandemic, but obviously the main goal is now let's twofold that, let's threefold that. So what
what are some of the innovative methods that Visit Lauderdale has implemented to foster both a safe and solid return to normal tourism and hospitality activity in the region?
Well, thank you, Max, for that question, and thanks for inviting me with this distinguished panel. Proud graduate of Nova Southeastern University's Shepherd Broad College of Law, so glad to be here. Well, interestingly enough, and something that some people may not know, Visit Lauderdale is a Broward County agency. We are 100% county agency, and what most people do know is that government isn't known for innovation. So it has been a very interesting time for this government agency, Visit Lauderdale, to try to become innovative in an environment which doesn't necessarily foster it. So what have we done? I think we were all shell-shocked at the beginning and stunned at how quickly the shutdown was and how devastating the impact was so immediately. As a result, we decided that we had to not pause or shut down our marketing, but tone it down and change the message that we were providing to people who would not only didn't want to travel, but couldn't travel either. We've used technology as a result significantly. We have webinars that we've put on for our main customers, our travel agents, and those who who were thinking about traveling, dreaming about traveling, and knew that someday they would get to travel again. But how would they be able to do that? We knew that that sanitary protocols were becoming predominant in people's minds. They wanted to go to places that were safe, that were clean, and safety took on a whole new meaning in 2020 than it had in 2019. Safety in 2019 meant, am I safe on an airplane? Am I safe when I get to the destination? What's the crime rate? Today, safety has completely changed so that, they give Tim's restaurants, everybody gets a sanitary wipe when they sit down. That's completely changed the dynamic of travel here. But we put together a junior ambassador program for people who live not only outside of the area, but who live in Broward County, because while our mission is to market and promote Broward County, our calling is to make sure that people are employed and stay employed. As a predominantly tourism economy, and with so many people losing their jobs, we recognized how important the work we do at Visit Lauderdale is to make sure that people can put food on their tables, that they have the dignity of work. So we put together a Safe and Clean pledge. Over 1,000 businesses in Broward County took the Safe and Clean pledge, which was plastered all over not only our social media, but the business's social media, and if they were brick and mortar, their places, so that everyone who walked in knew that they were going to follow, at the very minimum, CDC protocols as it related to COVID. We put together our Lauderdale's program for this summer. It is a traditional summer program, but we have absolutely revamped it. It is more robust than it has been in previous years, not just because summer is a traditionally slower time here. It won't be this summer, by the way. It may not be record breaking, but we will have a very busy summer. But because we knew that travelers had changed how they look at travel, they are much more budget conscious than they were 2 years ago. So what kind of deals can we put together? How innovative can the packages that we put forward to our potential travelers be? We rebranded in the middle of a pandemic. Most people would probably say that was not the best time to rebrand, but because government does move slowly, we've been working on this for 4 years and decided that we couldn't hold off any longer. We could not delay the rebranding of the destination to Visit Lauderdale, everyone under the sun. And it was a process, but the innovation behind creating the brand and the data that we used behind creating the brand suggested that while it may not be the best time to launch, we couldn't hold off anymore because people do want to travel. And Florida is top of mind for most travelers. Right. And the pent-up demand was such that we had to create new programs, new ideas, use technology to make sure to get the message out so that when the time came to book, which is now, people would remember who we are and why they wanted to come here.
And that use of technology within tourism and hospitality is something that obviously we've covered on our side in great detail for the last, all of our books, but especially over the last year, because it's been so crucial in order to retain some sense of normalcy for our different hospitality offerings, our different tourism offerings. And that leads me right to you, Tim. where, I know obviously the pandemic did at one point dealt a serious blow to the region's hospitality and service industries. And you being someone that I've actually frequented quite a few of your different spots with the restaurant people, I'd be curious to know, what your organization did and is still doing to strengthen your offerings in both service and hospitality. And then I have one follow-up as well.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to participate on this panel. Obviously March 2020 was when we were told to shut down on a day that I would never think would happen. We had 700 employees, over 80 managers, all of a sudden we're in a free fall, and we had to really adapt and transform. Like Dr. Hamburger said, out of need and necessity, really things happen. So, we went from not knowing what we were going to do. We made a commitment to our team that we unfortunately had to furlough our hourlies, but we want to make sure we had a commitment to our team, our management team, that we would not lay off anybody as long as we could. We had to revamp, relook at everything that we were doing. We had to talk to our landlords, our banks, everything to restructure where we were, because there was no end in sight. So when you're flying blind, you kind of have to adapt. Adaptability is unbelievable. And then we look at transforming. Once we finally were able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, we were able to, now we're going to reopen. Because we kept all of our team on, we were able to reopen our restaurants relatively quickly and get up and going. But then all of a sudden, we had to transform how we delivered service. Okay, we went from a high touch, high impact service to a hardly touch environment, because guests wanted to have their space. They wanted to make sure that our people weren't all over them. So we really had to reform how we did all of our steps of service. Touchless payment systems, digital menus, all those types of things came to the forefront. Cleanliness standards, as Stacy said, were paramount. We had to make sure that everybody knew that they were safe when they came into our spaces. And that is something that's here to stay. I don't think you're going to see that go away.
Yeah. Absolutely. And as far as my follow-up, I'm actually going to rephrase that in a minute. But first, I want to get to Jeffrey here, because I know he's been waiting patiently. Innovation and technology kind of go hand in hand, and specifically, obviously, in your case, the innovative uses of telehealth and what we've seen healthcare do over the last year has just been unprecedented. So what impact, as you now look forward, kind of looking towards the future, the next 2-3 years down the road, what impact do you believe that technology like telehealth is going to have on the overall future of healthcare?
Well, thank you very much for the question. And it's indeed a pleasure to be on this panel with this group. And technology was just one piece of the innovation that we had to deal with or to pivot to as we were moving through the year. Miami Jewish Health is an organization, a nonprofit, that has been serving the South Florida community for over 80 years at this point in time. And while Miami is core to our name, we have significant operations in Broward County with a campus in Pembroke Pines, where we operate affordable housing buildings, as well as taking care of folks through our PACE program out in the community. And while we are the largest nursing home in the Southeast at over 400 beds, we actually take care of more people in the community to keep them out of nursing homes. So the innovation and the definition of innovation itself had to be changed and went through paradigm shifts as we were all moving through this. Telehealth, telemedicine, whether it was FaceTime, Zoom, whatever the mechanisms were, clearly stepped up in importance relative to being able to have that interaction with the folks in the community. But more so was the fact that the healthcare went to the residents. It went to the assisted living buildings, or it went to the homes that these folks live in, which meant that all of our folks had to pivot from or innovate and recreate themselves from working in a clinical type of an environment to taking that show on the road and going into the resident settings themselves, which meant appropriate PPE and the full requirements for that, which were difficult at best to come by. And we had to be innovative in terms of doing that. The technology aspects of that are not only here to stay, that will continue to grow. People are going to be less and less willing to want to go to bricks and mortar. whether it's healthcare or whatever certain elements of what we do transpire into, we're not really going to want to go to bricks and mortar for everything, to the extent that we're now used to convenience, and to the extent that we can get services brought to our home, whether it's healthcare through telemetry or telehealth. There will be far more of that. That will require investment, that will require infrastructure, and that will require change in the mindsets of people. And it will take support from the communities that we operate in. We focus on the frailest of the frail in terms of who we care for. By definition, that's what we do, and that's who we are, which means that the governmental bodies, whether it's at the city, the county, the state, or the federal level, needs to assist in terms of how that delivery of care is going to be provided through the significant paradigm changes that we're going through.
Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is that innovation, change of mindset, something you all have kind of touched upon. It takes time, but one of the immediate needs now that is stemming off of the challenges of the pandemic is what it did to the labor pool. And I kind of look at Stacy and Tim on this one, where in tourism and hospitality, it obviously heavily affected your sectors. So Tim, I'll aim this at you first, and then Stacy, if you want to jump in as well. What innovative methods are you currently using to help replenish that talent pool? For Tim, in your case, for the various businesses, and Stacy, in your case, obviously for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, well, again, this pandemic was it was two-sided. Obviously, we went from zero sales to all of a sudden we came back a lot stronger, a lot quicker than we anticipated, and then because so many people were furloughed from our industry, a lot of people didn't come back to the industry. A lot of people found other work and other careers. So then that created a significant labor gap like I have never witnessed before. So what we've done now is we've had to become more efficient on how we deliver service. Okay, we implemented technologies to make sure that the steps of the server is as efficient as possible. Table side iPads and things like that for ordering, touchless payment services, things like that. And in our lines, just efficient ways of getting our line to get the food out quicker, as quickly as possible. Again, the historically hospitality industry doesn't innovate as fast as other industries because it is what people consider to be a high touch, interactive type of environment. But I think in the next 18 months to 2 years, you're going to see robotics come into play like they never have been through the industry, and you're going to start to see all these types of things for the evolution of efficiency that we're just starting to explore now.
Absolutely. And Stacy?
Well, and I think that because hospitality is so people oriented, it's going to be a very interesting transformation when we go to robotics, or even in check-ins in hotels, for example. It's going to be a very interesting dynamic. I do think that the pandemic has forced the entire hospitality industry to have a serious conversation about how it pays people, the kinds of hours people work. And we're all reading stories about some of these hospitality workers who have gone to work for Amazon because they can work 8-hour shifts in an air-conditioned warehouse instead of 12 hours a day on their feet. And Amazon will pay you at least $15 an hour. There does have to be a serious conversation about where the industry goes from here on out. And the pandemic has forced that upon us. Having said that, I will say that despite the fact that there is a lack of talent here because people have gone elsewhere, be a realtor in Florida with a high school diploma. And so a lot of people have gone to sell real estate instead. They can make their own hours. They can sell one house and make their month. It has forced a conversation that is probably long in coming. But having said that, the hospitality industry here in Broward County has bounced back very quickly, despite the talent issues. I mean, I eat, and I'll say this as a plug, I eat in Tim's restaurants 3 times a week at least, depending on which one it is. And I have found that he, for example, trains his servers exceptionally well, so that even though there is this lack of talent, there's not a lack of service. What we're hoping going forward is that if this continues to be the case, the traveling public will have some patience with what's going on. We are very concerned that Yelp reviews will be negative as a result of the lack of talent. People just have to be patient and grateful that they are healthy enough to travel and that we are all able to do so, recognizing the challenges and coming back so very quickly, because we have, knock wood, bounced back remarkably quickly in the hospitality sector.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you, Stacey. And George and Jeffrey, obviously, both of your sectors, healthcare and education, they were not immune to the effects felt on the talent pool. Obviously, stresses were on both of your staff. So I'd be curious to know how, after handling the challenges of 2020 and even into 2021 here, how have you innovated, your methods of not only retaining staff and keeping them actively engaged, but also how you're going to be looking at recruiting towards the future, if it's changed at all. George, I'll start with you.
Well, thank you. Universities, especially private, not-for-profit universities, have to not only be concerned about retaining students, but attracting students. And also, as a knowledge-based industry that has really 70% of its students graduate and professional, like Stacey was a law student, that's a graduate program. We are finding that in order to be the knowledge-based industry and to attract the high-tech and biotech, we need to be doing exactly what we did before. Take the classroom to the student or to the business, so that we can actually have corporate universities where we provide the faculty and the training, because the businesses that we're trying, and Broward County is trying to locate, high-tech, biotech, the high financial services, the marine industry, technology, it all requires something greater than pre-K through 12 or even community college. It requires master's level and doctorate level programs specializing in the industries as they come. So it's for universities, not just for NSU, but all universities, because we are all knowledge-based industries, working with those economic development agencies and the government to, as we attract targeted businesses, then what services and educational can we provide so that our workforce here doesn't have to leave, like Stacey said, to go somewhere else, because you can't attract high-tech and biotech businesses if you don't have the workforce, or you're not prepared to offer to that business educational or even certificate programs in specialties in the business in which they're in. So that's why it's so extremely important why the county, Broward County and NSU have partnered so that we can become the venue for venture capitalists and entrepreneurs to come together and to see how we can not only have ideate, but actually, after scaling up a business, to serve that business to flourish and prosper right here. So, and all of that, believe it or not, attracts students. So we're doing the same thing Jeffrey said. At Mother Invention, we had always had telemedicine, but we were prepared that when the government reduced its restrictions on telemedicine, we were able to give telemedicine not only in our clinics, but in our psychology clinic, which thousands of people needed counseling because we all got a little lonely during those last 15 months. So technology is going to continue to play a major role in not only education, but economic development, and even in the hospitality industry, just like Stacey and Tim said.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Hanberry. And Jeffrey, I turn to you.
I am very concerned about the future of healthcare and the healthcare sector when it comes to staffing and expertise. These frontline healthcare heroes and all that were involved with them are beat. They're exhausted. They are mentally drained. They are physically drained. They have seen the worst in terms of what they can see, and there's been significant flight from the industry. And it's not just in Broward or in South Florida. This is a nationwide issue that I hear from my peers around the country, each and every conversation. The number one issue, the number one problem regarding healthcare is staffing in terms of enticing people into it, given what they've seen, what they've witnessed, or what they've experienced. And in some areas of the country, there's been a drain in terms of folks that have actually passed away that were on the front lines as well. And that is going to be a major issue. And we're going to have to work with the schools, with NOVA, with the schools, with the state, with the governmental bodies in order to be able to train the quality students that we're all going to need to be able to service those that require care in this new environment that we're living and operating in. It's a real issue.
Yeah, absolutely, and it'll be interesting to track and see how the industry deals with it as a whole. I'd say for these next couple of questions, they'll be kind of quick hitters, so we hopefully can hit just a couple more before we have to wrap up here. We have about 7 minutes left. As I go around the panel here, obviously we're just a couple examples of the innovative spirit that's present here in South Florida, specifically Broward County in this case. But if you were to truly kind of describe and tell someone, what is that innovative spirit of Broward County? What does it look like? I guess, how would you describe that? Stacey, I'll start with you.
Well, I think that we have an incredibly large innovative flame here in Broward County. I think we always have. Broward County has always been progressive and forward-thinking, and we have seen absolute proof of that these past 15 months. When you're talking about government having to shift its paradigm and try and having to work faster and service its residents in a different way than it had been before. You're talking about the hospitality industry. I mean, what's incredible about this is that even through the pandemic, we're opening 17 new hotels in Broward County in 2021. We opened 6 or 7 last year during the pandemic. The convention center project, thanks to the county commission yesterday, they've put it back on the front burner. Their hotel's getting built. The east expansion at the convention center is getting built, and the west expansion opens in October of this year. It's going to be an incredible facility, unlike any convention center in the country, in addition to the fact that it sits right on the intercoastal, which no other convention center in the country does. That's pretty amazing. And the continued growth despite the pandemic just shows how amazing it is and how innovative the county is. Now, I recognize I've been a Broward County resident since 1974. I recognize that we have some problems. Clearly, affordable housing is an issue. You talked about that in your previous panel. It has affected the hospitality industry. People can't afford to live here anymore. That's a problem. That wasn't the case when I moved here, when it was one of the most affordable places you could possibly, not that I remember, I was just like a baby, but my parents said that. So it's just that there are some issues we need to address, but I do believe that the political leadership within the county, as well as the private sector leadership, is not only willing to tackle it, but is able to tackle it. And I think that also makes us different than other places. Everyone is willing to do what needs to get done, and we're not shy about talking about it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Jeffrey, I'll go down to you.
Innovation is only possible when there's collaboration. And one of the things that we very clearly saw, both in Miami-Dade as well as in Broward County, was a high degree of collaboration as we were all rewriting playbooks as we moved through this. So whether it was services from the county, the city, the public health departments, and so on, the level of cooperation and collaboration was real. We can be the best innovators possible, but if we don't work well together, it won't be effective. And I do give both of the counties that we live, work, and operate in high degree of credit for that.
Thank you. Tim?
Yeah, I have to agree with Jeffrey. Absolutely, collaboration is what came together for us and for this county. I think that pre-pandemic, at least for the hospitality community, we were more like acquaintances. And during the pandemic, we became family. Stacy, myself, the county administrator, city managers, we're all on the phone every Friday morning talking about what's changed in the last week, how do we adapt, how do we collaborate, how do we get out of this? And I think that because of that, we came out stronger as a hospitality community. We have open lines of communication to embrace innovation when we see needed. And I think that's going to carry us forward.
Awesome. And Dr. Hamberry.
I think innovation is indeed not only collaboration, but it's our diversity. It's all of South Florida. You can tell by my accent, I'm not from Fort Lauderdale or New York. I'm from Virginia. Virginia is far more homogeneous and not diverse. Creativity and innovation comes by not only collaboration, but bouncing ideas from different people at different times. And that's why a university is a knowledge-based industry. But we are very much just like Broward County. We are a minority majority university. Of our 22,000 students, 30% are African American or Black, 30% are Latino or Latinx, as called today, 30% Anglo, and 10% Asian. Just like Broward County, but also like South Florida. And Broward's innovation is because we are right in the center of South Florida, and we need to be thinking of, to attract industry and business. Nobody realized that Ives Dairy Road is a boundary line between Miami-Dade and Broward, nor does anybody realize that Glades Road is the boundary line between Palm Beach and Broward. It is South Florida that we need to continually to be thinking about. And it's just like Tim said, we realize that more during this pandemic than ever before. And I think you're going to see in the future more collaboration to look at us as South Florida instead of Palm Beach, Miami, or even greater Fort Lauderdale. So I would hope that this mother of invention, this pandemic has allowed us all to realize that collaboration and diversity is our strength, and that diversity gives us greater potential for more innovation. And this university cooperates with Broward County. The county government has established through its small and minority businesses over 55 incubators to try to build businesses. We're here to try to help them scale up to attract the venture capitalists and the angels who want to invest in good ideas.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, we are out of time, but I think that's a wonderful note that you all left on. I'd say this panel has produced quite a few quotables from everyone here, so I love to see that. If everyone can just hold for 1 second before we all say goodbye, we're just going to take a quick picture. So smile. Perfect. Again, I appreciate you all for being here and your participation today. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back off to our CEO, Abby Maloney, to wrap us up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, well, thank you again. What an amazing conference, and all the panelists and moderators, thank you so much for your words and your insights. For anyone who missed my opening remarks, I spoke a lot about a collaboration between the public sector and the private sector, and this panel definitely hit on it. And our first panel absolutely reinforced that Broward County and Greater Fort Lauderdale have that cooperation, have that communication, and will only set us up better in the future. Thank you again to all of our sponsors for today's event. Our gold sponsor, Nova Southeastern University, our bronze sponsors, Fort Lauderdale Behavioral Health Center, Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, and High Power, and our honored sponsor, Baker Donaldson, Broward Workshop, Miami Association of Realtors, the Riverside Hotel, and Transworld Business Advisors. It was an absolute pleasure to have you all here today, from our panelists and moderators, our keynote, to all of you there in our virtual audience. Thank you for being here today, and I wish you all a very happy afternoon. Thank you again.
Going on and on, and you listen 'cause you want.